been at every meeting that I've been to, and you've been
trying to keep up, yes.
and you clearly have a good understanding, and I'm sure you have good recommendations. Like, one thing I would ask of you and other citizens here, do you have recommendations to council? Do you see the problems, the same problem that we all face?
Taxes are going to go up. They're going to go up. I mean, you can cut all of the services and you're not going to make up the $602,000. I mean, I think that's sort of obvious. Just a matter of how much the taxes are going to go up. You know, Exeter is always one where we have a very good school district. I've taught there for many years, as Mr. Pisano is teaching there. We have a very good reputation. Exeter, people have always said they want to move into the town because of the low real estate taxes and the opportunities for, you know, a good school, churches, and a community environment, and I would hope to keep that. The problem I see is that the taxes go so high that, you know, lots won't be sold, homes won't be sold. I know the economy is starting to pick up a little bit, but, you know, if the real estate taxes go up to a certain extent, I have an older parent, my wife has an older parent, and they both parents live in Exeter, we live in Exeter, and it's, you know, you hear them say about the taxes and to keep the upkeep of their homes and, you know, just to keep the property up. I don't want to see it, the property values go down. So unfortunately, I can't foresee, even if you cut services, taxes will still go up. But again, that's just me.
Mr. O'Boyle, Joe McCabe, Exeter Park, Whitelock Street, 146. I understand you were hired by the Borough of West Wyoming. Could you give us a little input on how you got them back on track?
We did an early intervention study for the Borough of West Wyoming. The biggest thing for West Wyoming was the fact that the previous manager at the borough was
Mismanaging funds?
Mismanaging funds is probably the best way to say it. The borough's cash position 2 years after we finished there went from essentially zero to about $200,000. So when all cash that was coming into the borough actually came in instead of not coming in, you know, it was able to do that.
So when you took over, they're in the whole 200,000? Not quite?
No. We took over, the borough had a deficit approaching $1 million. The borough refinanced their outstanding debt to borrow the money on a 15-year payback, or 10-year payback, because it was unfunded debt. That's all you can do is 10 years. And they took a variety of other steps. They brought in another manager. They made some changes. But essentially, they had to go out to the financial community, borrow money on an unfunded debt basis with court approval, and get their fiscal house back in order. It was not an easy step for them to take, and they did not cut services. They maintained pretty much what they had.
But they got it back on track, right?
Yes, by making it difficult.
So by looking at this council here, there's no way, except for cutting services that are doubling the real estate tax, that you can get us back on track.
I think council has a variety of options open to it. It can evaluate the level of services it provides. It can look at the different sources of revenues that are available. You certainly have the ability to raise taxes, and you still have some flexibility with respect to repaying the funds that the council has borrowed internally.
Well, you know what irritates me to be here? I was here 20 years ago. I was one of the mayor's grandfather and them all. They knew it. Mrs. DiRoberto's husband was here. We went out on a limb and opened up a sewer project for 20 years. It was paid off in December. We started January with $1 million in excess. So you're recommending, oh, you can borrow out of this fund all the time. But we're supposed to be paid out. We went on the ballot and paid this off. And why should we keep paying this? And now you're telling us the taxes are going to double. There's got to be other solutions. I can look at these council members up here, right? The city of Wilkes-Barre is down to 4 council. Do we need 7 people in this town to start out with? You know, there's a lot of recommendations to be made, but do you have any good ones?
One thing you did say, you mentioned borrowing. How would that benefit the borough? If the borough entered into a, say, 10 or 15-year loan, or was able to secure financing like that?
Well, I I don't think the borough would have any difficulty entering into a term loan to repay itself. The question is, would you prefer to do that externally with a financial institution or just repay your funds internally?
So there's two options with borrowing. One is
Right.
external finance.
External with a financial institution. The borough would not have any difficulty getting a financial institution to extend the funds to it. If you ask the court for approval to fund unfunded debt, because you would look at this, I think, as unfunded debt. You've borrowed from yourself. You're looking at carrying over accounts payable from one year to the next year. You put all that together and say, we need X $100,000. The process then is you go to the common pleas court in Luzerne County, as West Wyoming did, ask for permission to borrow unfunded debt. The court usually will grant the petition, and then you have a 10-year payback period to pay that loan.
It was in today's paper, Ray, the Borough of Edwardsville owed $125,000, they were strapped, they didn't know how they were going to do it. They went to Tommy Burke, the court system, and he approved where they can get, I forget the name of the bank, but they gave him a loan. So over a 10-year period, is it possible, rather than jack up the, real estate taxes, go out on a limb a little bit and cut it in half maybe or something,
I'm familiar with that, but I'm asking Mr. Boyle, how would that impact the necessity to raise taxes? Because obviously you'd be dealing with the fixed annual payment.
Well, I think,
However,
but the question then becomes, what are you taking out of the expectation for next year? You would take out $140,000, give or take, for what you're estimating carryover funds to be. There's nothing in there, at least in what I looked at in terms of projected budget or preliminary budget, for repayment of the original borrowings from the sewer and from the refuse account. So, you have the possibility of saving about $150,000 out of next year's proposed preliminary budget, but you still have the other funds that were borrowed from the sewer and the refuse accounts. Hope I made that clear. But,
so those would be considered unfunded.
well, it'd all be considered unfunded.
Why couldn't the borough borrow the entire amount?
They would. That was my point earlier. You put that together with all the funds and borrow the entire amount, do it as unfunded debt, and pay it back over a 10-year period.
This way the sewer fund will be made whole.
This refuse fund would be made whole. The general fund would wipe out, in effect, its debts to the other funds, and tax increases are the court, when you go and ask for unfunded debt, the court's going to say you will levy X X debt, whatever, to pay that debt back. That'll be part of the court order. So, in that sense, you'll have an idea. You'll have a very good idea of what the repayment stream is going to look like.
Is that an alternative that your firm would recommend?
I think it's an alternative that you have to look at. The other alternative, as we discussed earlier, is doing the same thing internally. But that becomes a little difficult. You do it as a resolution, but that's not the same as external debt to a financial institution.
Okay, then. Is there any limit, Mr. O'Boyle, on the amount they can raise the taxes? Is it an open, with the amount of debt we have, is there any limit on how much they can raise the taxes?
The borough code limits general fund taxes to 30 mils, so you're a long way from that.
Okay.
And there's no limit on debt millage at all. You can raise millage unlimited to pay debt, which.
Yeah, but we just had a reassessment a couple years ago, right? We had, our taxes are low, but the problem is, we got to sit down and try to iron it out where we don't get crucified every year. Like just 2 years ago, we got the reassessment. Now we're going to get nailed with our real estate taxes. So what's the answer? Somebody up there has got to sit down and say, we're going to get together and put our heads together and start, every dollar helps, but you got to start somewhere,
Joe, I'll ask you what I asked Mr. Coleman. What do you suggest to the borough?
I'll tell you one. To start out one is